Thematic, guys. Don't say we don't do theater, because we do theater here at the Grand Line
We
Tourist
do theater.
Podcast.
We are very theatrical. Yeah, at the Grand Line Tourist Podcast, because that is what that's what we are. It's on our deep inner core. We may have other lives outside of this, but you know how like Superman, I think he's deep down as Superman, right?
Yeah.
Outside, he puts on this other stuff. So me and you, we may go out our lives as, Jacob, I don't know what he does. He like walks around, he goes swimming sometimes, does some tutoring, but when push comes to shove, he is the tourist of a very, very awesome podcast called The Grand Line Tourist, a chapter by chapter examining or re-examining of Eiichiro Oda's One Piece. And there's someone else sitting across from me that when they are not, writing wonderful sketch comedy and such, they are, they reveal their true form, and their true form is as what, Eric? What are you?
I am the halfway through maritime law degree-seeking tour guide, Eric Sivu. I have a bunch of other stuff too that we have made canon in this thing. I can't
failure at minoring in Japanese, I think, might be the latest addition to your backstory.
Is it
there.
considered me failing to minor if the minor wasn't even there? I mean, it was there in college. That's on me though. That'd be fair. That is on me. Regardless, I am Eric Sivu, your tour guide. I'm here to guide you all through this chapter. What a chapter we had talked about, huh? We have to jump into.
Woo,
chapter 63.
Indeed, but before we jump right into that, we have a letter at port. We've gotten
Yay.
Here. We have Jai has sent us in a follow-up about the proposed potential, ambiguous food fight, food challenge, cook-off. Here's what we got. From the podcast, it sounds like fried rice is the way to go. Other pages may give you some spoilers, so I'll send you the recipe for fried rice for Jin. Because Sanji is a cook, feel free to put in your own spins to this touching dish. So yeah, there's gonna be a cook-off at some point between Eric and I. We'll decide on somehow to do a format and judging. We'll just find nearly dead people and feed it to them. Oh, that doesn't seem like the best way to do it. We'll find something.
That's true. That'd be pretty difficult to do if we're gonna try and pull something off like that, where we just kind of go and find someone who's really, really hungry. We
go hang out in emergency rooms, right? And we say, "Whoa, that one looks pretty. That guy, he's nearly gone." And be like, "Take a taste of this."
And they'll be like, "Sir,
this one or that
you
one?
need to leave, or I will call the cops." And then we're like, "We just need to feed one, Dr. Murray." I'm assuming who would be talking to me.
Oh yeah, Dr. Murray. I feel like
Sorry, we're in California. It'd be like Dr. Lee or Dr. Nguyen. You know what I mean? Especially me. I'm in Orange County, so for sure there's an Asian doctor somewhere.
There you go. Well, for sure somewhere. Yeah, like a lot of places.
All right.
Well, okay. Don't worry. That'll be coming at some point. And I think
we'll post it. You know what? We
ado,
should make it, and we'll post pictures of our journey of cooking this challenge on our Facebook group, which we do have, folks. If you wanted to join in the Facebook group, it just started. There's a lot of the people in it are the names that you probably recognize from this podcast, because they're the people who are writing in and kind of participating. But that doesn't mean you can't join in. We are the tours and tour guides. Is the name of our group on Facebook, I believe. I'm double checking it, but as I do that,
and I believe I've just been keeping this up in the podcast notes, so I believe it should still be there. If it's not, I'll make sure it is in here as well. So it should be easy enough to click on in order to find. And yeah, I think you're right on it being tourists and tour guides.
Yeah, man. So super excited to have you guys jump in. Obviously, it's a fresh group. Doesn't mean that it can't get popping. Yeah. Some people got to start the party. And it might not be Jacob and I, but it could be you, or it could be me after a night of trying whiskeys. Or rum. This is a pirate podcast, so it has to be rum.
I know, and you said posting pictures. There's a part of me, I don't know if anyone likes Kenji in his YouTube videos making food. I feel like we're going to have GoPros on our heads, and we're going to be live streaming ourselves cooking.
I was not.
My ambitions for cooking are more than Eric's ambitions, so we'll see how it winds up going. There'll be at least a mild amount of video content associated with it, whether or not that's just somebody trying it at the end. That said, I think we're ready to dive into chapter 63. At least, if you're Luffy, don't dive in. If you're Luffy, stay where you are.
You gotta
on the fins.
Ocean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Devil fruit users, they're gonna be drawn to the bottom.
Chapter 63. I won't die. I won't die. I won't do it. I won't die. All right. Here is your itinerary for today. Krieg affirms his joy at discarding the traitorous Jin. He's very pleased with himself. Man, what a jerk. What a
piece of work.
What a piece of work.
What a monkey's uncle.
Sanji and crew, they go ahead and they scramble to help Jin, despite him, being from the other side, right? Like, at some point, he seemed...
But Sanji doesn't care at this point. This guy saved me. Yeah. He's a good guy.
There's been a lot of, like, saving going both ways. There's, like, some mutual saving going on, which is quite nice. Sounds like someone should get a mutual fund. No, this is very bad advice to throw in the middle of the itinerary, but never too early to start saving.
Sponsored by Wells Fargo, folks. Thank you so much.
There's a discussion about, what is the ideal antidote for food poisoning, what is the ideal antidote in general for all the MH5 poisoning? And, like, it sounds like there's some antidote that they have in general for food poisoning that might work, but Zeph says, no, there is antitoxin in the masks.
Just put it back
on. Put one on Jin and take him to the top of the ship right away. And Patty and Karn, set to the task, they jump right to it. Luffy then goes on to, like, to tell Jin that you need to survive to spite this horrible leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need to show him what's what. Live beyond the horrible, violence of this, gas that's been sent at you against the Geneva Codes, and I will send Krieg flying. I'll deal with him. Don't worry. I got this. Jin's a little doubtful because he trusts and thinks his commander's pretty awesome and pretty brutal. And, that said, he does have quite the arsenal, so we'll have to see how this goes. What does Luffy do? Luffy charges in. That's what he does, because Luffy always does that. Luffy charges in. It's his Luffy strategy. He splashes Krieg with a kick in the water after getting staked yet again. Luffy's just full of holes now, I think. And he prepares a punch. He's getting it ready to go right into Krieg, and Krieg deploys the porcupine cape.
Yeah, of course, because that's what this man is. Full of all these trickies. Trickies.
Indeed. Full of all these tricks, and Luffy's Gum bullet goes right at him anyway for a KO, a knockdown. Man, oh my goodness.
Knocked out. So a KD, not a knockout, because a knockout would mean that he's out, but he's not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's out for the moment. I feel like it's a very interesting discussion about the difference between a KD and a KO, because I feel like if you get someone with a KD, you could probably follow up with some well-placed punches to get a KO, but, like, you're right. I don't think, at least so far, we don't see that happening right away, so knocked down, but potentially not out. Sanji and Zeph, they have a little moment to chat about this vision of Luffy they see just going at, going at Krieg. Just because... With such an honest brutality, just an honest effort, they're impressed, and they're kind of saying, like, that's the way to be in this world, is kind of a little bit of what they're talking about there, and ultimately, you're right, it was just a knockdown, because Krieg gets up and tries to attack Luffy, only to get a foot in the face, which I have to point out it seems to be the imagery of the moment. Feet near faces, sometimes getting eaten, sometimes not.
Putting his foot in his mouth. That's a theme that's been happening this whole arc. I mean, Zeph did it literally, but this is, just a thing.
Yeah, so that leaves us off right there. It seems like things are going well for Luffy.
Wait, we can't go there yet. We can't go deep dive into this story, into the main story. We have to go to the bigger story.
Yeah, because I'm not as sensitive to the airwaves as you are, but you feel it? I feel them now, too. There's a hair rising on my arm.
Telegram, sir.
Oh, my goodness.
The
last adventure. The last adventure of Richie's pirate crew. The fall of Richie's pirates. No.
Can I just say, best two-panel joke, period. This is my haha.
Worst two-panel joke. I wanted hundreds of Richie's pirate crew. I feel like part one.
You pointed it out last chapter too. It's so good that last chapter, the cover story started with part one, the adventures of Richie's pirates, and then it's so great. Last adventure, it's great, dude. This is dope.
It didn't even get part 2. He didn't get another number. Just part 1.
They lost so bad to this tribe.
Oh, yeah, I see that one annoying, local. Oh, it's Kumate tribe. Yeah, he's got his spear with the knife on the top, and he's got his sandaled foot right on Richie's poor, battered, open-mouthed head, and all the other pirates are not looking good. One of them's holding up a little white flag in the right side. Oh goodness.
Oh yeah, the one who's
getting held up. Yeah, I'm very disappointed. I wanted Richie to have a longer time as captain than Buggy did. I don't even know how long Buggy was captain before that. But alas, it was not to be.
So good. All right, let's jump into this chapter now.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to end the podcast. I'm done. Richie,
oh no,
Richie's gone.
I'm quit forever. All right, Santiago, you know where to meet us. We're gonna meet at an island in the middle. This is it. Jacob said he's done.
we proposed that. Yep, this is the end of the podcast. Everybody, go home.
All right, dude. Let's just kind of jump into this thing. All right, I'm bringing back a topic that we talked about before, and I'm calling it Zoner versus Rushdown Part 2.
Oh.
Because that's what it is, man. And I'm just kind of like, there's not much going into it. There's a lot of stuff that we can deconstruct through this conversation of like a Zoner versus Rushdown again. Because it's coming up again because I want to talk about how they both do really represent their fighting styles. Right? And if you guys don't know, a Rushdown character, zoners, and grapplers, those are kind of the archetypes within a fighting game. Right? If you ever play Street Fighter or anything, they all kind of fall into their zone, into their specific archetype, or the way they fight and the way they play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, required reading for this episode, learn a combo from the Street Fighter series, and, hit a character with it, see what happens. Enjoy.
Yeah, so just to kind of break it down real quick, right? A zoner character is just a character who controls space, who controls, like, they have a lot of stuff that goes across the screen. This is what Krieg is doing. He controls the space right now. He has the full advantage because Luffy only has a very small strip of, pole to kind of run across to get to himself. So Krieg's able to just shoot things over and over again and kind of get things in his eyes and all that stuff. Whereas Luffy is playing the Rushdown game, which is Luffy can stretch for all means, but he can't stretch that far, and he can't be elevated. Like he needs to get to Krieg in some sort of capacity, right? So, bringing it down to how do these philosophies attach their way of fighting right now? We've seen that one of the weaknesses of playing a zoner character in fighting games or in general is that when they get to your face, you're very fragile. Like, you don't have much left anymore. You can't do your thing. Your game plan is out. And it's almost like, in this chapter, because we see Luffy do it, Luffy actually finally gets in front of him by taking, like you were describing, taking the hits. Just kind of going straight through the spikes, not really caring. It's like...
Stake your claim,
yeah. It's like Krieg is, all of a sudden, Krieg has to confront his own weaknesses. We know that he is just a very showboaty, very, like... I'm this display of power as opposed to actually having power. Now he's being confronted by another man who, by all extents, like, they both share the same thing. This is, again, another Zeph and Sanji comparison. Luffy and Krieg both share the same dream of being Pirate King. Right? But now Krieg is forced to face somebody who's, like, in his face to be like, do you really want to do that? Are you really willing to fight that way? Or fight for this dream of yours? And this is the first chapter that Luffy apparently is winning, right?
Yeah. So, no, it's a few moments I want to call out in the fight is Gum Gum Bullet. Is that new?
No, that's the very first punch.
Whoa. Gum Gum Pistol.
No, it was Pistol.
Yeah. So I didn't realize this until we were just getting started recording today. I feel like Bullet maybe is like a slightly stronger version of Gum Gum Pistol, or like, when you really need a really good Gum Gum Pistol, you pull out a Gum Gum Bullet. I do think it might be the first instance of that. Call us out on that if that is not the case, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting
to see that here.
Yeah,
and beyond that, you were mentioning, the idea of the zoner and the what's the other one?
Rushdown.
The rushdown was when Luffy gets in the face. It is kind of interesting to see Krieg doesn't immediately become useless, because like Krieg, we end this chapter with Krieg kind of trying to do what he can to face the rushdown, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of he seems to have enough brawn to kind of like to try to do something against Luffy. It doesn't work, right? You know, when the rushdown is there in your face,
It's in your face. Yeah, that's the pressure. And it's straight up, like we've talked about how these shonen fights are a battle of philosophy, right? Right now, it's a question and answer. Right? The question before was, how are you, Luffy, gonna get across this pole to fight me, right? Now it's switched. Luffy's done it. Luffy says, my answer is, I'm just gonna freaking take it, and then I'm gonna hit you. Right?
Yeah.
But Krieg had an answer too. Krieg's answer was my porcupine cape that he had somewhere, right?
Oh yeah, well I feel it might be the inversion of the cape. It actually kind of was pretty cool. I don't know, you can only imagine where all these things fit inside of Krieg, but it kind of felt like a pull the cape around myself, and then on the underneath of it you see, oh my goodness, it's covered in porcupine spikes.
But again, the Krieg fights with intimidation and fear, right? The fear of getting hurt when you punch his spike cape will make you stop. But Luffy at this point is no longer afraid of his cannons that aren't really aimed at him. It's just there to take away his vision. Not really afraid of his spikes anymore. They're just stakes. They're gonna come through me and I'll pull them out. And I'm not afraid of your spikes that you cover yourself in. I'm gonna punch through it. I'm not afraid of you as a person anymore, is what Luffy's saying. You don't have what it takes, and I've seen you treat your best man like this. Like you're a fragile, poor person. I'm gonna beat the snot out of you.
Yeah, and well, it kind of relates a little bit to Sanji says at some point, like, I wouldn't want an enemy like that. And he was talking about Luffy, and I wish I could think about...
I think that's Zeph,
I know those
actually.
are the words.
I think Zeph
that's Zeph?
That. Yeah, Zeph says that you need to pay attention. This is a really cool dialogue that I wanted to bring up, too. It was just like, you need to watch this kid. Because once in a while, you have somebody who's so ambitious that they're just going to keep chasing their ambition until they die. And, and then I also love that Zeph says at the end of it, because Zeph... Remember, for all extensive purposes, Zeph has gone through the ringer. He's been in the Grand Line and stuff. It's cool for him to say, you don't want that as a feller as an enemy.
Yeah. So I think I had the wording wrong, but it's a real nuisance to have a feller like that for an enemy, right? You just, it's scary, right?
It's in your face.
You don't want to. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because if anything, at the end of the day, bringing it back to video game, a rushdown character forces you to have answers. Can you stop me? Right? And Krieg tried to throw him with the shield, right? But I thought he landed a hit, but I actually, looking back at the panels when Krieg does it, I actually think Luffy kind of uses him. It's not a hit. I think Luffy's kind of using it as like a platform to launch behind him.
Ah, yeah, because you have, he's kind of splayed out across the shield, which, the stakes definitely looked like they hurt Luffy more than just, a little kind of stretched out little like poof. And then you're right, then he's in the air, and then the foot comes down. And just curious, I do want to call out, so we have him in the air. It looks like he's moving away from Krieg at that point, right? Like he got pushed by the shield, so he's going backwards, right?
I think he, and then, if you can think about it, I think he hit him with the shield and flicked him.
Okay, and so now he's behind. He's behind Krieg, moving further away, right? And while that's happening, is Luffy's foot stretching to kick him in the back of the head? Is that what's happening?
He's flicking his other foot to kind of come back and kind of more, not like the back of the head, more like think of it as like a claw.
Oh my goodness, Eric! Oh my goodness, these fights are so intriguing to read. So okay, I'm gonna break this down kind of for myself and for anybody else who has a little trouble deciphering these fight things. Boom. Okay, Luffy is like now getting hit by the shield, right? And Krieg flips that shield kind of over his head, flinging Luffy backwards into the air, right?
Yeah.
And you see a foot that is kind of closer to Krieg's head in the panel right before the one that lands the kick. That is not the foot that's going to land the kick. It's the other foot, which is going to wrap around and do a nice, that's winding around to get a good slam. I interpreted this incorrectly and was thinking that foot just stretched really fast, which doesn't make as much sense. You don't feel like you'd get a lot of impact if you're just stretching your foot out and doing that. But the other one, whipping around and going overhead to land the kick, that's how you get maybe a KO instead of a KD. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens to Krieg in this next chapter coming up.
And I'm wondering how much of it was planned or how much is just Luffy naturally good at fighting. But
once he's up close, right? Maybe he's just improv-ing it, right?
Yeah, and I just also feel like he's not intimidated by Krieg anymore. Krieg is just a man built on intimidation, on control, right? And it's so fun that he's losing his control of this fight. That's why Zeph is like, this kid's a problem for anybody fighting him because he's just not going to stop. All right, his engine.
And
This kid
I
is straight up
won't
saying that
stop.
my willpower and my fighting engine, my spirit, is better than yours.
Yeah. No, I like this about Luffy because I relate to the idea of just being the positive. I'm just gonna go at something, keep going sort of person. It's tough to be that person. It is tough, but
Yeah.
it is it's admirable, right? It's hard. You can't watch that happen and not be like, that is like, it looks unstoppable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think this is just so fun because Krieg, like, look how much talking Krieg is doing in this fight. He is doing all the talking. He calls Luffy a monkey again for not being able to learn. Actually, he calls him worse than a monkey because he won't learn from his mistakes,
Yeah.
right? And he says that this is where you're gonna die. I know the ocean's your grave, and then, like, they had this fun exchange about this grave. And then when Luffy lands his first hit, he's like, "Whose grave is it again? Is it mine or is it yours?" Right? And then Krieg, like, he's a fragile, evil man. It makes sense that he fights like this. It makes sense that he's all about shiny weapons, toolboxes, tricks. Like, past all of that, you're shallow. You're an empty man in that armor that you built for yourself.
You know, when you've been talking about this like man underneath all the armor, I kind of imagine like a very chibi version of Krieg, which is just like about the size of his head,
Yeah.
and he's just like inside of some sort of gigantic robot
And he's
body.
just like roboting, like piloting this giant mech. Oh,
Yeah,
no!
it's a mech. It's a tiny creature in a big mech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I'd like to kind of touch
Indeed.
base on something really small, because this is like a fun little philosophical thing. This is outside of One Piece. But,
Ooh.
Jacob, you and I both, we both partake in a little bit of trading card games, you know, one-on-one,
Oh.
Magic the Gathering trading card games. So I'm going to do some equation stuff for you. A rushdown character would be very similar to like an aggro deck, right? Like a deck that's kind of wants
Oh,
to
yeah.
win in like 3-4 turns. Whereas like a zoner deck would be like a control deck, wanting to like control the field, control the spacing and all that stuff. Where do you think you kind of fit in on the spectrum of, like, do you prefer one play style over the other, and then why?
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
In regards to, you know, I do have a lot of experience, particularly with card games, right? As
Yeah.
these trading card games where you have these, you know, you got your mid range, you got your control, and you got your aggro rush decks.
Mhm.
I think, I mean, I can't lie, Eric. I very much, it is, you know, anyone, shout out to Hearthstone out there.
Yeah.
Anyone who's ever played a hunter deck, I for a while there, I really enjoyed playing the Hunter Rush aggro decks
Ooh.
because it's so fun to know that your time to output damage is limited, that their game plan is going to beat my game plan, and so I need to extract every ounce of like value I can from every turn, and to finally kind of like to sneak out one of those wins. It's very Krieg to kind of like
don't
cheat
think
out that
so.
win with just one little point of damage. No, that, I mean, it's kind of mixing metaphors here. That sneaking out that win felt Kriegish, but I guess in Krieg's kind of the control deck, or you could also think about it as in attempting like dog-headedly, kind of in the Luffy way, to get that last point of damage. Is another way to consider it. That is a fun way to win sometimes.
Yeah, it sounds like you enjoy the time crunch that you've given to yourself, because I've built this aggro deck that needs to win
yeah.
in this capacity.
It really depends on the type of aggro deck, though. Sometimes they're not fun to play, but in ones where it feels like you have to be a little creative to like think about your opponent's game plan to get that damage, I like a thinking man's aggro deck.
I love that. So the reason why I'm bringing it up is that I know we're talking about it in the capacity of a game, but I think games are the best way to kind of simulate a person's personality, right? Like, it attaches to the way that you kind of solve problems, because that's what games essentially are. It's a problem, and then you're figuring out different pieces and moving pieces to kind of solve an issue. That's what a fight is. A fight is just a very clear problem. This person wants to beat your face in, right? How do you solve that? But you can kind of see how you can extrapolate, like, philosophies out of it, or like how a person's ideas. Yeah.
If you encouraged me to do that, I would take this metaphor a step further, and I would say what it is for me is, as opposed to the control deck where you're not interacting with the problem, I enjoy the visceral, I'm immediately interacting with the game, with the problem, with the state of the board. You know, I'm going in there and I'm laying down things that matter right away, as opposed to I'll take my time. I'll chill out a bit. I might do something. No, that's no fun. You want to get your hands dirty, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking there.
And I'm trying to think about what I am. I mean, like...
Yeah, what are you, Eric?
Personally,
who are you?
I have enjoyed
What is the
playing...
What do the tarot cards of Magic the Gathering reveal about your inner soul?
I like to do more... I'm definitely more control than anything.
You
I'm more control
dastardly
mid-range.
devil.
And that
You
mid-range
Krieg.
just for folks just to hear. Like, mid-range is just like in between, obviously. Like, it's in between control and
Yeah,
aggro.
no, and just to maybe I'll do a quick summary of what's kind of interesting about this idea. You got the aggros, they'll win. They'll try to beat
They'll beat you fast, yeah.
Yeah, they'll beat you fast, and so that'll beat against the control. The control, they're going to try to, hold off the aggro until they can develop their game plan and win. Mid-range, they're just like, well, you know what? If I can, I'm going to be in the middle. I can outlast the aggro enough to have a big enough game plan to win.
Mm-hmm.
And then against the control, I can get enough damage in. I can kind of almost play that, be that aggro against the control a little bit, right? Put on the pressure early and be able to finish before they still have their game plan going. So it's an interesting little midpoint there. Rock, paper, scissors a little bit going on.
Yeah, and then just for me, just to kind of dive into like the philosophical reasons why I like control, I think I'm a very reactive personality. I think I kind of take a little bit of time to kind of absorb what's happening and figure out like if that's a good thing to take happen, if that's the thing that's just a decline or negate, you know what I mean? I will say what I differ from Krieg is that Krieg in a fight doesn't care how he wins. Me, I kind of care a little bit how I win. Like, I'm not going in there and, like, stealing your cards or just ripping it up and being like, what card are you talking about? It's gone. You know what I mean? Krieg is in the sense of, like, he's controlling the sense that he'll do anything. I will lie about quitting, right? If I wanted to play Magic the way Krieg plays Magic, I think Krieg will play control decks, and when he's losing, he'd be like, this game's stupid. Walks away from the table, doesn't concede. He'll walk away from the table, and then come back and just toss your cards.
Ooh,
yeah, just swipe your card
brutal.
on the table and be like, you gotta quit now, bro. So it's fun. And it's just, well, we're trying to do this kind of, this metaphor and this compare and contrast of how our personalities kind of, it's reflected in like a one-on-one situation, which is what Krieg and Luffy find themselves in now. What are their personalities and how are they going to shine for the rest of this chapter, for the rest of this fight?
Yeah, and I would encourage any tourists or tour guides out there to, let us know what you feel you are. Are you a aggro kind of person? Are you a control person? And in the context of fighting games, in the context of Magic the Gathering games, in the context of, basketball. Do you like taking the three-pointers? Do you like getting into the middle of the lane and, pushing against the other team in order to get a layup?
And then,
think about maybe the game that,
Yeah, and then maybe define and maybe try to dig a little deeper within yourselves and be like, why do I like doing that? Like, why do I like playing basketball that way? Why do I like to shoot as opposed to drive? Right? Why do I like playing defense in basketball rather than anything? Right? Why do I like to set in volleyball as opposed to like spiking? It's fun to kind of deconstruct yourself in the space of a game, because I think you'll find that games are just a fun way to kind of let yourself be like a true reflection of yourself in the space of a game.
Yeah, and leave yourself some space too to find out that like in context of games, you actually try out a different personality than your actual identity.
Yeah.
Right? You might feel like, ooh, I'm a Krieg in volleyball, but when it comes to like my real life, I'm more of like a Luffy. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's cool too.
That was a wonderful little philosophical discussion there. I wanted to bring up one thing that was kind of interesting, also from the chapter. And in my classic, I've been a while since I did a little translation note here or there. And I wanted to point out that we have a different translation for Porcupine Cape in the alternative translation that I get from Stephen Paul sometimes. It says, Krieg, looks like you will go to any lengths to hit me. See if you can get through my Kenzen Cape. And then there's a little note here that says, Kenzen is the term for the base used in a ikebana flower arrangement. The needles stick up from the base, and the flowers are stuck onto the needles. So just wanted to throw that out there that, just to be honest, his cape actually does not look particularly a lot like porcupine quills.
It doesn't. It looks more like a durian.
Yeah, like a durian. You're right. Like a durian cape would have been a fantastic name for it.
But then again, I'd also look up. If you think about the original translation back on whenever this happened, like, we're naming two very Asian things, like two very Asian cultural things, that this media must have made the choice of, like, these are things Americans don't know. So we can't use that.
Yeah. No, and so, apparently it's from a flower arrangement initially, which would have been another thing nobody knew, right? So they didn't do that. Porcupine works just fine. But yeah, I just wanted to share that little tidbit there.
2022 version of us definitely enjoys, like, I would have enjoyed the Kenzen Cape, whatever it was, because I would have loved learning that little bit of culture at the same time, because that makes sense. But I can imagine a world where in even in, I don't know, in 2002 or something when this came out, or 2000, you've been like, oh no, porcupine.
Well, that said, I think it's time to maybe chuck a little haha into the air.
I already said my haha. The best haha of the series so far is the last adventure of the Richie Pirates.
Okay, no, and then I'll just share one that's also kind of a cool little detail. When Luffy punches into the Kenzin porcupine cape, the chefs, their hands are shaking because they're imagining the action of doing that themselves. They're like, he punched him right through the porcupine, and they're holding onto their own hands as if they're in pain because they know that would hurt. And so that's just kind of a funny thing for them to do, is to feel the pain of Luffy.
That hands are very sacred to chefs.
True. Yeah, so they're imagining, like, I would never, like, hands are important. I would never do that. His bare fist, don't touch it. Shaking their hands in the air. I thought that was pretty funny.
They're also just all master treaders. They could just tread water with their legs.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we gotta, really, what should happen after this is there should be a big water polo match.
Yeah, because that'd be a crazy match.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, you got Luffy in there. I mean, if Krieg was still still kicking,
Luffy can't participate
down.
in
oh yeah, maybe take out the big players. Like you gotta.
Well, because he can't swim. He's not allowed. He can't swim.
You're right. Luffy's pretty useless in water polo. Jeez. Yeah. No, he's no good.
He's probably very good at diving.
Yes.
But just
once. He could get right down to the bottom, and I don't know what you do once you're down there. I guess you could tickle people's feet or something, stretch up. All right. Speaking of leaking feet as a battle attack, we'll look some feet. We'll punch some toes, crack some hands, put on those brass knuckles. These are all. I've been in fights before. It's time for the panel battle.
We actually, for this panel battle, it's not just a 1v1 anymore. It's actually, I have to say, it's technically a 2v1, depending on what panel you chose. But our boy, friend of the podcast, Christian, has emailed in, just like you can, at grandlinetourist@gmail.com with your panel selection. Remember, this section of the podcast, it's just 2 panels going after each other, or 3 or 4, but the number of panels participating depends on you, listeners, if you are here. And you are more than welcome to send in your panel for this section where we put 2 panels together, 3 panels, 4 panels, and we go, what's cool about them? Which one's the best? Our friend Christian, he sent in his, and his favorite panel, and we should just start with his, and it leads into mine.
Yeah.
Because we actually share the same panel.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. So, Christian, do you have it out? I got my favorite panel is, of course, Luffy punching through Don Krieg's spiked cape. Things like this are why I love Luffy. Oh, things like these. I can pluralize stuff correctly, and I can read. So, yeah. What do you think of that panel? Let's take a look.
He's talking about specifically the bullet panel, and this is where Luffy just puts his whole arm into it. And maybe it's called a bullet, Jacob, because it's not stretched.
Oh, yeah, there's a wind-up, right, that is stretched, but then it's very close. So the impact is close to Luffy's body as it happens.
Yeah, which probably has a different, more power if it's the beginning of the bullet. It's like it's more like a punch-shove as opposed to like a punch, right? This is a punch and then shoving him down. Yeah.
No, nice.
It's really cool. You get a really cool panel here of Luffy's arm, the impact, mid shove. It looks like it says bullet. We have a huge onomatopoeia, kaboom. We see it's the cape is getting pushed into Krieg's face, and you see Krieg's like deformed face taking the full impact of that sucker being shoved into each other, and it's great. And his face looks disgusting. Like he's taking the full impact there.
It's just a sea of thorns, like in crazy pattern, all surrounding this completely squished face, and teeth looking like they're in extreme pain. It is quite. Like, I think this is the most distressed we've seen Krieg look, at all so far.
And Christian is 100% right. When you're reading a shonen manga, like moments like this are what define this genre, which is like overwhelming fighting spirit overcoming evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Through sheer willpower, bullet, triple question mark. Well, I think that is a fantastic choice by both you and Christian. So we got those two going on for there, and so now
great minds.
And now you can open my panel and see what you think of it. In comparison to those two.
Mr. Richie. Oh my goodness.
What are you seeing over there?
It. Call us Seabiscuit, folks, because we triple crowned.
Oh my goodness! Yes, we did. I as well picked the exact same panel.
This is the moment. This is it.
This is it. This is I was gonna end the podcast because Richie was done, and this is another great signature. We gotta end the podcast now. 3 of us, the same panel. Oh my goodness.
We need to end the podcast with us dropping the mic.
Ooh, indeed.
It's been done. Well, now our next goal is to get quadruple same panel.
Oh yeah,
so we need 2 listeners to write in, send in your panels, and we all need to line up. That'd be the way to do it.
Yeah, and it's cool because that can always extend, right? We'll get 4, and then we'll get 5, and before you know it, it'll be.
It'll never stop.
Alrighty, no, I'm fairly good with that. If you want to just end with us dropping the mics.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, you ready?
Yep.